I recently got back from a 1-week stay at the Ocean Riviera Paradise all-inclusive resort in Mexico. When booking my trip, I upgraded to the privilege level, and let me tell you, what they advertise for the privilege level is very different than what the true privilege level experience is. Before I tell you what the true privilege level experience is, let me get a few general comments out of the way. I have never upgraded to the top tier at any resort before. This is my first experience. The reason I upgraded is because I knew I was going to do a food review for my channel. I felt that the food review would not be complete without reviewing the extra food available to the privilege level guests. Having said that, privilege level guests do not get a special menu or additional menu items at restaurants. The only additional restaurant is the Privilege Lounge, which I will talk about in this review. The upgrade was not costly. It was approximately an extra $350 Canadian for the week. Was the extra cost worth it for the privilege level? To answer that question, we need to begin where the privilege level experience begins. When you arrive at the resort outside the front lobby, they will ask for your name and check for your name on their clipboard. When they discover that you are staying in a privilege level room, that's when it begins. I was told to wait a moment, and then a few seconds later, someone came by and directed me to the private privilege check-in. If you're looking for a quiet private entrance, you will not get it if you are staying in the privilege level. The gentleman had a sign that said privilege level, and he was leading me almost like a parade to the private privilege check-in. I didn't feel that the privilege sign was necessary, especially since it was only about 30 feet away from the entrance. When we got to the privilege check-in room, it apparently was full. So I had to wait outside the privilege check-in before I could actually get checked in. They did ask me if I wanted something to drink. A waitress came over and took my order. I don't know about you, but there are two indications when my vacation have started. One is that first drink that I have. The second is when I get to actually check into my room. So it was very nice after a long day of traveling to get that first drink. While I was waiting outside the privilege check-in, a gentleman who worked at the resort was making small talk, asking where I was from, questions like that. He'll play another part in the check-in process in a minute. The wait outside the privilege check-in was much longer than I would have expected. It was long enough for me to finish that first drink and order a second drink. After almost finishing that second drink, we were told we could now go into the privilege check-in area. We sat down at the desk and got checked in. The lady who checked us in was very pleasant. It was a very nice experience. Part of the check-in process includes getting access to the free Wi-Fi. To get access to the Wi-Fi, you scan a QR code. Scanning the QR code gives you access to the privilege level Wi-Fi. Now, I did check later on in the week to see if the privilege level access was different than the regular guests' access. I did a comparison of the speeds, and they were exactly the same. Ocean Riviera Paradise still uses physical keycards as hotel room keys, but as a privileged guest, you were given a privilege wristband. The wristband is not a room key. It is not an electronic device at all. It is just made from wood. As a privilege level guest, you'll be required to wear this all week. One nice service that the privilege check-in did for me was allow me to break my large bills. They were able to give me a bunch of 20 peso bills. I wanted the 20 peso bills for tipping. The check-in process was very, very smooth, except for, of course, the waiting before the check-in process. But once we got into the room, check-in was very smooth. This is where it gets a little sketchy. Once we got checked in, we were directed to follow the gentleman who was talking to me earlier, the small talk, before I got into the room. I went with him, sat back down to where I was originally, and he was going to tell me about what the resort has to offer. I sat back down with the gentleman, and he had this envelope with him. Basically, he walked me through what's in here. There's a helpful Spanish phrases, a plan your stay calendar, a list of all the restaurants, the times, and a map of the resort. So very useful information within this little package. But the funny thing is that as he was going through this piece of paper, he kept repeating, because you are privileged, you have access to everything, you are upgraded, you are upscaled, everything's going to be the best, etc., etc. You're going to love it, it's going to be amazing. Really trying to convince me that what I'm going to experience is an upper echelon experience. And then he hit me with it. He said, I would like to invite you to the welcome breakfast. If you're not aware of the welcome breakfast, what that is it's timeshare. I didn't realize it, but he was part of the timeshare department for the Ocean Riviera Paradise. And I don't know why I didn't notice it, because the timeshare office is right beside the privileged check-in. So I should have noticed it. Now, having said all that, he was a very nice gentleman. There was no issues. When he invited me to the welcome breakfast, I simply said, no thank you, I'm not interested. And that was it. And it was fine. No hassle, no, are you sure? Really would like you to come. So that was my first experience with the timeshare. And I say first experience because there was a couple other times dealing with the timeshare during the week. When I say dealing with the timeshare people, I don't mean to make it sound like they were hassling me. The next time timeshare was brought up was when this note was left at my door. Anytime coupons are mentioned, it's again about trying to get you to listen to a timeshare presentation. Then the final time I interacted with the timeshare people was in front of the Amaranto buffet. There was an employee asking if we just arrived and whether I was invited to the special welcome breakfast. Again, I simply said I'm not interested and moved on. So yes, there are timeshare people at the resort, but just say no thank you and keep walking. So after I said no thank you to the welcome breakfast, he said, okay, no problem. And then he left and a woman came over and introduced herself as our butler. And we went off with her to the, what would you call it, like a tram or a golf cart, where she drove us to our room. Our luggage didn't come with us. We were told that it would be coming to our room later. So as we were driving to our room, our butler did point out a few restaurants along the way, pools, etc., etc. And then we got to the room. As I mentioned earlier, I've never done the upgraded experience at any resort, so I've never had a butler before. I've never thought I needed a butler or would want a butler. I've never been to a resort and thought, oh man, it'd be really helpful if I had a butler to do this for me. So I don't know what a butler does or what a butler can do. So let me just show you what the resort says a butler does. A butler can pack and unpack luggage, clean shoes, collect clothing for laundry and ironing service, make spa reservations, and make dinner reservations. Other than making a dinner reservation, I had no interest in any of those other services. If the butler does more than what is listed, I don't know. She didn't even offer the services that the hotel says she does. What she did ask me is, do you have WhatsApp? WhatsApp, for those of you who don't know, is a texting chat service. I didn't have it, but I downloaded it quickly on my phone, and that's what you use to communicate with your butler. So if you have any questions or need help with anything, you would send a WhatsApp message to her or him, and they would help you out. What my butler did do every day in the morning is send me the weather for the day and also let me know which restaurants were closed on that particular day. And speaking of the restaurants, she did ask me where I wanted to eat and what time for the week. So if you are going to the Ocean Riviera Paradise and you do have a butler, I highly recommend planning out your week ahead of time, where you want to eat each day and the times. Obviously, it's adjustable. You don't have to do it, but the butler will ask you. So the butler makes your dinner reservations, and you would think that you could get whatever dinner at whatever time you wanted, but that's not true. So I'll give you an example. Know that The butler does not make your full week reservations ahead of time. Your butler has to make the reservation on that day. So if you're eating at 6:30 p.m. at the Mexican restaurant on Wednesday, your butler actually makes that reservation. She won't make it on the Monday for Wednesday, she just makes it on the actual Wednesday. So having said that, I told her earlier in the week that I would want a 6 p.m. dining time. And later on in the week, I realized that 6 p.m. was a bit too early for me. I wasn't hungry that early. So I asked her to change my next dinner reservation to 7 p.m. You would think that the butlers have access to the reservation system before regular guests. So I would think that making my reservation at 7 p.m. would be no issue. That's what you would think. She replied to me and said, "Here is your reservation. It's for 8 p.m. I thought it was a mistake, so I replied to her through text and said, "Oh no, can you please make the reservation for 7? And she replied saying, "I'm sorry, it's booked. It's full." What's the use of having a butler who can make your reservation for you if she can't make the time that you actually want to eat? So although you have a butler, and although the butler makes the reservations for you, it's not guaranteed that you're going to get the time or the restaurant that you want. So after the butler and I had our little conversation about the dining times and the restaurants I wanted to eat at for the week, she left and I explored the room. Before I close this chapter on the butler, I want to mention that I only saw my butler a total of 3 times during the entire week. Once when she showed me my room. Second time, I passed by her in the hall. Third and last time was to get my special dinner coupons from her. Other than those 3 interactions, I texted her about dinner a couple times. And that was my entire experience with the butler. Again, I never felt the need for a butler, or what services they could provide, but I was disappointed I never saw her on the last day. I thought she would come by to make sure I had a good trip, made sure my luggage was ready to be picked up, or some other small goodbye. But nope, never saw her. Although this room is in the privilege level building, the layout is exactly the same as any of the other buildings. So if you have a swim out, junior suite, expect the exact same layout. Because this is a privilege level room, there are a few bonus amenities you get, and I'll stop and show that during the room tour. Every privilege level guest gets a welcome gift. My welcome gift was this bag. It's like a beach bag, and it says privilege on it. It was actually quite handy for the week, so it's a nice gift. I just don't need it to say privilege on it. The second welcome gift is a t-shirt. It's a nice t-shirt. See here it says Ocean. It's got like a little design on the bottom. It's just a simple cotton t-shirt, but it's nice. I did ask a guest who was staying next door to me if they also got the beach bag and a t-shirt as their welcome gift, because I wanted to confirm if everybody got the same thing. And they actually told me they did not get a welcome gift. So they spoke to their butler and asked them for the welcome gift, and then they eventually got it. The fruit and the bottle of wine is something unique to the privilege level. It is possible that if you are not staying at a privilege level, you may get fruit, but the bottle of wine is unique to the privilege level. In fact, it's this bottle of wine. I'm not a huge wine drinker, so I haven't opened the bottle. It's a wine from Spain. It's a Cabernet Sauvignon. I'm sure it's a very nice bottle of wine, but as I'm not a wine drinker, I did ask the butler if this could be exchanged for a bottle of tequila or a bottle of rum, and she said no, sorry. Hopefully you're a wine drinker. Staying in a privilege level room gives you the option of bed pillows. That's right, they offer a pillow menu. Here are the options. I was happy with the default pillow, which was the soft pillow. But if you do have a preference, know you can get your pillow changed. Speaking of pillows, a piece of chocolate will be left on your pillow during turn-down service. It's funny, because I wasn't eating the chocolate. I was just collecting them on the side table to take home. Near the end of the week, all the chocolate I accumulated disappeared. I suppose they thought I wasn't going to eat them. In hindsight, I should have put them in the fridge or in my suitcase. This is the room dehumidifier, and let me tell you, it fills up fast. You can leave it for the maid to empty, but you'll likely want to do it more than once or twice a day to keep the room from getting damp. It's easy to remove the bucket and dump the water into the bathtub. A full bucket weighs about 20 pounds. If unsure, ask your butler for instructions on how to use it. Trust me, it's worth emptying. The mini fridge is well stocked, with a good variety of alcohol, beer, juices, water, pop, and snacks. No matter what I took, it was replaced the next day. Except for the single bottle of vodka, it was never replaced. Privilege level guests also get this toiletry bag in their room as a gift. Let's see what's inside of it. It's a toothbrush and toothpaste, another toothbrush and toothpaste, some cotton swabs and a nail file, and a makeup remover, a comb, a razor, and some shaving cream. And that's it. And it's a nice little mesh bag, good for traveling. No matter if you are in the privileged building or not, you will have access to the room service menu. The benefit for privileged guests is 1. You have access to room service 24 hours a day with no extra charge. Everyone else can order room service, but only certain times. Otherwise, they will be charged 160 pesos. 2. You have access to a special, privileged room service dinner menu. I don't remember all the items, but a couple unique items were sushi and a flank steak. Honestly though, unless you absolutely love eating in your room, you're going to have a much better dining experience if you go to one of the restaurants to eat. I stayed in a swim-up room. On the patio, there is a soaker bathtub, 2 chairs, and a small table. It was really nice to sit on the stairs in the water, have a drink, and relax. You can see how close it is to the privileged pool. I would often hop out of the swim-up and walk into the privileged pool. The water in the swim-up was actually warmer than the privileged pool. I have been to many resorts and have seen different styles of swim-ups. Some are individual pools, some are shared with a neighbor, and some, like the ones at Ocean Riviera Paradise, are one long connected pool. I don't know what the swim-up etiquette is, but this dude just floated in front of my swim-up, presuming he was a new neighbor. But it's pretty rude he didn't move over a couple feet, so as not to be right in front of me. What I'm about to say may not be applicable anymore, as I cannot find any official information, but when I visited Ocean Riviera Paradise, as a privileged guest, a 1-hour visit to the spa was included. There was no massage or any of the paid services included. It was simply providing access to the spa and the wet areas. Having said that, when I went to the spa to use my hour, I was told I had to make an appointment 24 hours before my visit. Considering I didn't see anyone at the spa, this surprised me. Needless to say, I didn't bother going back. If you are interested in visiting the spa, speak to your butler first to see if a visit is included. Let's talk about the restaurant that only privileged level guests have access to. It's called the Privilege Lounge. It serves breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But just like all other restaurants, there are days of the week where the restaurant will be closed. It's usually only one day a week where dinner might not be served or lunch may not be served. I did eat at the Privilege Lounge for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, so let's talk about the food. Starting with breakfast, I actually ate breakfast twice at the lounge. The The first time was not the experience that I wanted. After I was seated, I was told I could not order off the breakfast menu, that only the buffet section was open. I never got an explanation why this was, but maybe it was because I was very early. Fortunately, the buffet spread was actually very good, and better than the Amaranto breakfast buffet. The breakfast spread had churros, and this was the only place I ever saw them. There was everything you could want. You may think this is meaningless, but the fact that there were much more dried fruit, nuts, and other items I could put in oatmeal compared to just the few items at the Amaranto breakfast buffet made this a much better buffet to me. The second time I went to the Privilege Lounge for breakfast, there was a very long line. According to the people in front of me, lines are not usual, but obviously there are certain days of the week where you will have to wait. The breakfast menu did look good, and it ended up being worth the wait, especially when I got my first mimosa. I tried the avocado sandwich with poached egg, salmon bagel, eggs motolinos, eggs Benedict, and a made-to-order omelet. Lunch is served in the Privilege Lounge as well. For the appetizers, I tried the codfish croquettes, fried calamari, montadito with salmon, tomato cream soup. For the main, I tried the surprise egg, mixed fidio beef tenderloin mini hamburgers, tzatziki with chicken skewers, and of course, I had one of each dessert: creme brulee, baklava with vanilla ice cream, chocolate tartufo. Privilege dinner started with some really great cocktails called Mango Cobbler and the Time and Again. I wasn't excited about the appetizer options, but I did try the fish pakoras, vegan carpaccio, and the octopus carpaccio. For the main course, I tried two dishes, the Chateaubriand and the flamed fungi linguine. They need to work on this dish, as after it comes to your table, you need to wait for the guy with the cheese wheel, and he's busy, so your food just gets cold. The flaming doesn't heat it up at all. He does a little show, but I suggest not ordering this dish. Who can forget dessert? Not me. I ordered one of each: papaya cream, pistachio mousse, and the duo cheesecake and brownie. One of the other perks of being a privilege level guest is having access to a upscaled alcohol selection. Every bar has a selection of alcohol specifically for privilege level guests. You may have to ask for it, otherwise they may use standard alcohol. You'll also notice every bar has an upscale alcohol selection, so make sure you're asking for the alcohol in the privilege selections. I am not an alcohol expert, meaning I've always been fine with standard alcohol. I don't know the difference. Let's talk about the location of the Privilege building on the resort. I think the Privilege building is the best location on the entire property. It's closer to the beach than it is to the restaurants, but what I really liked about it is that walking from the Privilege building to the restaurants, you do pass the cenote. So you will pass the monkeys and the alligators, which I never saw, but it said there was alligators, and the coatis. I also like, because of the location, I've had to pass the steakhouse and margarita every day on the way to breakfast or on the way to get a coffee. And in front of the margarita and steakhouse were always the specialty carts that were not advertised anywhere. In my previous food video, I mentioned the chamoyadas cart, but there was also a second cart there on another day serving coffee, and you could mix it with alcohol. So they had a little cart with coffee, and they had little bottles of alcohol, so you could put Kahlua or rum or whatever, different kinds of alcohol that you wanted to put into the coffee. And because of the privileged location, that was the only reason I ran into those carts. If I was staying at El Beso or if I was staying in the Daisy buildings, I would not have passed the Margarita and Steakhouse, and I would not have seen those two carts. In the evening, in front of Margarita and the Steakhouse, there is a bar set up with some tables and chairs. This is a perfect spot for an evening cocktail before or after dinner. This bar is right in front of the privilege area, which is ideal for people staying in the privilege building. And then, of course, you also have the privilege pool. Personally, I also think it was the best pool on the entire property. You may disagree with me on that. It really depends on your personality. The Eden pool was, I would say it's the activity pool. A lot of entertainment going on. That's where the games are happening. And then the El Beso pool is the adults only pool. It's not R-rated exactly, but it's more mature, more adult oriented, and they do have some games there as well. Where the privilege pool was, I would call it the quiet pool. It was calm. It was a perfect size. It was just a very, very nice area to be around. Of course, I didn't mention the Daisy pool, which is very loud, very small, and of course, kids running around everywhere. Now, even though it's called the privilege pool, anybody can use it. You do not need to be in the privilege level building to use the privilege pool, which I think is quite disappointing. I think the privilege pool should only be for privilege level guests. But there are no signs indicating that it's for privilege level guests only, so anyone can use it. Although anyone can use it, I did not find it to be the most popular pool. I found the Eden pool to be the most popular pool. Another benefit to being a privilege level guest is having a private area of the beach. Well, this is what the resort tells you. It advertises that there is a privilege level area of the resort, of the beach, I should say. But that's not true. Well, it's sort of true. There is a separate area past Pez Villa that's kind of secluded, and it does have beds and loungers. And that is the privilege level area. But the problem is there are 0 signs saying that this is for privilege level guests only. And I looked. Trust me, I looked. Since there are no signs saying that this is for privilege level guests only, everyone uses it. It was very, very crowded, very congested. And I looked at people's wrists to see if they were wearing a privilege level wristband, and majority of the people were not. Some people were, of course, but majority were not. So it's open to everybody. So that's very disappointing and not as advertised. Because it was so congested, it wasn't tranquil or relaxing in any way at all. The last item that privilege level guests get is a special dinner. This is what the resort calls it. They call it a special dinner. It's a coupon that the butler will actually hand you. You have to decide what you want to eat at that moment when the butler gives you the coupon, because they'll fill it out. It's a selection of about 4 or 5 items, and the items are, maybe they look or sound special, but they're not. One of the items is surf and turf. You might think, oh, I'm going to get a full lobster or half lobster. No, there's no lobster. You get a few pieces of shrimp. The privileged special dinner can happen at any restaurant, but I would recommend having it probably at the Steakhouse or maybe Blue Moon, because I felt that those 2 restaurants probably cook steak the best. I had my privileged special dinner at Pez Villa, and when I saw the food that was included in this privileged special dinner, I was so disappointed. So the privileged special dinner is nothing. Really, it's nothing. In fact, I would recommend not doing it. Go to Blue Moon for a better dining experience. Go to the Steakhouse and get a better cut of meat. One more point about the special dinner that must be mentioned is the fact that only if you're 18 or over will you get a coupon for the special dinner. I think this rule is absolutely ridiculous. If I was a family of 4, but only given 2 coupons for the parents, what are my kids going to eat? Yes, of course they can order off the regular menu, but why should the parents get the special dinner and not the kids? If there are 4 people paying for the room, why shouldn't all 4 people get the coupon? Fortunately, you should skip the special dinner anyway, so no one's going to miss out. Perhaps a better question is, if I was going to stay at the Ocean Riviera Paradise again, would I book a privilege level room? The answer is yes, I would. Even though I thought having a butler was pointless, I don't appreciate the exclusive alcohol selection, and even though everyone can use the privilege pool and the privilege private beach area, I would book privilege again because of the location of the privilege building, the atmosphere of the privilege pool, and most importantly, access to a great breakfast in the privilege lounge and the lounge itself is enough to sell me on upgrading. I'll be posting 2 more videos on the Ocean Riviera Paradise, so click the subscribe button and you won't miss when those are posted. If you haven't watched my food and restaurants video or my quick look at the pools, check them out. I'll see you on the next one.